Welcome to this deep dive, where we're tackling something we all do, like every day, but maybe don't think about too much. Starting conversations and, keeping them going, especially with people we don't know that well.
Right. Those moments can feel a bit awkward sometimes.
Totally. Like bumping into someone new at a work thing, or even just wanting to chat with a neighbor. Those first few words.
Yeah, they can feel like a hurdle, but they really don't have to be. Knowing how to handle those initial moments and keep things flowing, that's a pretty useful life skill.
A game changer, really.
Exactly. And we've gathered some really practical stuff for this. We looked at a transcript from English Podcast Zone, episode 162. It had some great little phrases for small talk.
Okay.
And we're also drawing on just general advice about, how to start and sustain conversations. The goal today is really to give you, our listener, a kind of toolkit.
Actionable strategies.
Yes, concrete things you can use to feel more confident in those moments. Keep the chat going naturally, but also, and this is important, remembering that communication styles can vary a lot across cultures.
That's a really key point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's picture it. You're somewhere, an event, coffee shop, maybe just waiting around. That first step, actually talking to someone new, feels like the biggest leap sometimes.
It can, yeah.
What's the first move? What should we be thinking about?
Well, often it just comes down to being present, like observing what's immediately around you. What's happening? Is there something you're both experiencing that gives you a really natural, low-pressure way in?
Can you give us some, real-world examples?
Sure thing. The weather. It's a classic for a reason, right? Everyone experiences it.
True. Safe territory.
Definitely. Or maybe someone's carrying a really cool book or has an interesting bag or something. Commenting on that genuinely can be great.
Oh, I like that. Specific.
Yeah. Or if something's happening, maybe a funny announcement or a street performer, just a simple comment about that shared experience works wonders. It's about finding that immediate tiny bit of common ground.
Right. So not forcing it, just noticing what's already there.
Yeah.
And then the simplest thing, a greeting.
Absolutely. A simple hi or hello, but it's how you say it, with a real smile. Open body language.
Uncross the arms.
Definitely uncross the arms, make a bit of eye contact. It just signals, hey, I'm friendly, I'm open. It's step one.
Okay, the hi is done. We've smiled. Now what? How do we get past that initial hello and actually, start a conversation?
Questions. Engaging questions are key here. People generally like sharing their thoughts, their experiences. It makes them feel seen.
Makes sense. So at an event? Instead of just having fun?
Yeah, maybe try. So how do you know the host? Or have you been to this venue before? Or did you catch the keynote speaker earlier? Something a bit more specific.
And if it's just waiting in line somewhere.
Could be as simple as, is this your first time here? Or even just a friendly, how's your day going so far? It just opens the door a crack.
And we want to avoid those questions that just get a yes or no, right? Those kill the conversation fast.
Exactly. Open-ended questions. They're your best friend. Questions that need a bit more than one word. They invite the other person to, elaborate a little.
Like, why did you decide to come today? Instead of, are you here for the conference?
Perfect example. That's where a real conversation can actually start to build.
Okay, so you've tossed out a good open-ended question. They're answering. What are we doing while they talk? Just waiting our turn?
Oh, definitely not. That's where active listening is so important.
Oh, right.
Simple things like nodding shows you're tracking. Making little sounds like, uh-huh, or oh, interesting, or really.
Encouraging noises.
Exactly. It signals you're engaged, you're curious. It actually encourages them to keep talking, and it builds that little connection. It's about showing genuine interest.
Okay, so we've initiated, we're listening actively, we've got the ball rolling. But conversations can just fizzle out, can't they?
Yeah.
After the first few exchanges, how do we keep the momentum?
Yeah, that happens. Think of it like a game of catch. It needs to be back and forth.
The give and take?
Precisely. It's not one person lecturing or just waiting to jump in. It's balanced.
I like the catch analogy. So they say something, they throw the ball. How do we catch it properly and keep the game going?
By really listening to what they just said and asking a follow-up question that connects directly to it.
Okay, give me an example.
So if they mention they just got back from a trip, instead of just saying, oh, cool, you could ask,
Ooh, where did you go?
exactly, or what was the best part, or oh, I've always wanted to go there, what was it like? It shows you were actually listening and you want to know more. That makes people feel good and want to share more.
And I guess early on, it's probably best to stick to lighter topics. Avoid anything too heavy or controversial right away.
Generally, yeah, that's usually the safer bit. Starting with things like hobbies, interests, maybe recent travel, movies, books, Even just light stuff about what's happening around you, it builds comfort first.
Find that safe common ground.
Find that enjoyable middle ground before you, dive too deep.
And what if you strike gold?
Yeah.
Like you find out you both love the same obscure band or follow the same weird sport.
Oh, that's brilliant when that happens. Finding a shared interest like that music, sports, movies, whatever, it instantly creates a stronger connection.
Yeah, it clicks.
It really does. It gives you something solid to talk about together, makes it feel much more engaging, less like just polite surface chat.
Now, it's not just the words, is it? There's all the nonverbal stuff going on, too. Body language.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. Eye contact, not staring, obviously, but comfortable eye contact shows you're paying attention.
Right.
A relaxed posture, maybe leaning in slightly, nodding occasionally, smiling genuinely. It all says, I'm here, I'm interested.
And things to avoid.
Well, the classic crossed arms can definitely signal closed off, or constantly looking away, scanning the room. That sends a pretty clear message you'd rather be elsewhere.
Yeah, not good. And it's not just about receiving information, is it? We need to chip in, too. Keep it balanced.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. Sharing little bits about yourself, relevant personal stories or experiences, makes it feel more like a real exchange.
So if they mentioned loving hiking,
And you just went on a nice hike, you could briefly mention, oh yeah, I was just up in place last week and the views were amazing. It adds your personality, builds connection.
okay, so we're keeping it balanced.
Yeah.
How do we maybe inject a bit more life into it, make it more memorable, maybe humor?
Yeah, appropriate humor can definitely lighten the mood and make the conversation more enjoyable. A lighthearted joke, a funny observation about something you both see.
Like commenting on ridiculously hot weather or something.
Exactly, something relatable and positive. But, and this is a big but, you have to be really careful with humor, especially early on and across cultures.
Right. What's funny to one person,
Might fall completely flat or even offend someone else, so tread carefully there, keep it light, keep it positive.
good advice. What about if a topic just sort of dies? It runs its course. How do you smoothly shift gears?
Observing your surroundings again can be a great bridge.
Ah, back to observation.
Yeah, if you're in a cafe, wow, look at that painting, or that coffee smells amazing, it gives you both a new shared thing to comment on and potentially explore, a natural pivot point.
And throughout all this, showing you're genuinely interested in them is key, right? Not just waiting to talk about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Enthusiastic responses make a huge difference. Things like, wow, that sounds fascinating, or really, I've never tried that. How did you get into it?
It shows you value what they're saying.
Exactly. People feel heard. They feel like their contribution matters. That's huge for building rapport.
But what if the other person is, naturally quieter or seems a bit hesitant? You don't want to steamroll them or make them feel interrogated.
That's such an important point. It's about social awareness, reading the room or reading the person.
Respect their comfort level. Give them space. Maybe don't fire questions quite so rapidly. Pay attention to their body language. Sometimes a slower pace, more observations than direct questions, helps someone feel safer opening up.
Creating a welcoming space for both people.
Exactly. It shouldn't feel like pressure.
This actually leads perfectly into some of the cultural points from that English podcast zone source. The taxi driver's opening line was pretty bold.
You don't look very Chinese to me, if you don't mind me saying so. Let's unpack that little phrase at the end, if you don't mind me saying so.
Yeah, that phrase is acting as a kind of softener, a polite hedge.
Okay.
The speaker knows they're about to say something potentially direct, maybe based on appearance or even a stereotype, something that could be a bit intrusive.
Like commenting on ethnicity.
Right. So adding, if you don't mind me saying so, is like acknowledging, hey, I know this might be a bit much, but it's an attempt to cushion the blow, make it seem less blunt.
Interesting. And then he follows up with, excuse me if I'm being a bit nosy, but. Now, nosy itself sounds kind of negative.
It does. Nosy means, overly curious about things that aren't really your business. Poking into private stuff.
So by saying, excuse me if I'm being a bit nosy, he's basically...
He's flagging it. He's saying, okay, I know the question I'm about to ask might cross a line or be too personal, and I'm sort of apologizing in advance for it.
Which leads right into him asking, how old are you? The podcast pointed out that asking this, especially to a woman early on, can be seen as impolite in Anglo cultures. Why is that?
Yeah, in many English-speaking cultures, particularly Anglo ones, age is often considered quite a private thing.
Mm-hmm.
Asking directly, especially right at the start, and yeah, particularly towards women, can feel intrusive, maybe even a bit rude. It touches on privacy, sometimes societal stuff about aging.
Okay.
It's just often territory you don't venture into right away.
Good to remember. Later on, the phrase "don't get me wrong" pops up. What's that doing there?
Don't get me wrong, that's a clarifier. You use it when you want to make sure the other person doesn't misunderstand your intention behind something you've just said or are about to say.
So preventing misinterpretation.
Exactly. It's like saying, hold on, I want to be clear about this point. The examples in the transcript about the computer, the plan, John Aid, they all show it being used to soften something or head off a potential wrong conclusion.
And then there was the passenger's response. I am 26 years old, and what about yourself? The hosts mentioned that while what about you is technically standard grammar.
What about yourself is super common in American English.
Right.
It really is. Even though, yeah, grammatically, you might be preferred. Colloquially, informally, what about yourself is used all the time. Using it can actually make you sound maybe a bit more natural, more fluent to American ears.
Fascinating how language works. This whole exchange, though, it really flags some topics that are generally best avoided early on in Anglo cultures. What are the big no-goes?
Well, the podcast specifically hit on a couple. First, money. Asking how much someone earns, what their salary is, that's almost always considered very impolite, way too personal.
Okay, definitely avoid that.
Definitely. And second, asking about marital status. Are you married? Especially early on. It can come across as intrusive, maybe even like you have ulterior motives. Unless maybe the topic of family comes up naturally much later in the conversation, and it feels appropriate in that context. But as an opening question, usually not.
Wow, those are really crucial cultural pointers.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift again. Say the conversation's gone okay, or maybe it's just hitting a natural end point. How do you wrap it up gracefully?
Yeah, the graceful exit. Recognizing a natural pause is key, like after you both laugh at something or a topic feels finished or there's just a comfortable little silence.
Okay, seize the moment. What can you actually say?
Saying something positive about the chat is always nice. Well, it was really interesting hearing about X, or I really enjoyed chatting with you. Ends it on a good note.
What if you actually genuinely want to stay in touch? How do you suggest that without being awkward?
If it feels right, if there's been a real connection, you can try a casual, hey, it'd be great to continue this sometime, see how they react.
Gauge their response.
Yeah. If they seem keen, maybe then suggest exchanging LinkedIn or whatever feels appropriate. But if they seem hesitant, just leave it at the nice comment. No pressure.
Sometimes, though, you just gotta go. Your train's coming, you have another meeting. How do you make that polite exit?
Being direct but warm is usually best. Oh gosh, look at the time. I actually need to run now, but it was really lovely meeting you.
Give a slight reason.
Yeah, a brief, polite reason helps. I've got to get back to my desk, but I really enjoyed our conversation. Makes it feel less abrupt.
What if the conversation wasn't exactly thrilling? You still want to be polite, but maybe not gush.
Yeah. In that case, a simple, friendly, well, it was nice talking with you. Have a great day. Works perfectly. It's polite, it provides closure, but it doesn't imply you're desperate to talk again tomorrow.
Clear and kind. Got it. Now, the language takeaway from the source mentioned a few handy phrases. Let's just quickly cover those. First up, sure thing.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
Super common, very informal. Basically means, yes, okay, no problem, I'll do it.
Like, can you pass the sugar?
Sure thing, exactly.
Right.
Relaxed, agreeable.
Okay. Then, born and raised here.
Pretty straightforward. Just means you were born in a place and grew up there, lived there your whole life. Indicates a strong connection to that location.
Simple enough. And lastly, the good old US of A and Colombian heritage.
Right. The good old US of A is just an affectionate, and maybe slightly nostalgic, casual way to refer to the United States.
Yeah.
Friendly vibe.
That heritage.
Colombian heritage means your family background, your roots, cultural traditions. History comes from Colombia. Heritage is about that cultural inheritance passed down.
Great little clarifications. Okay, so wrapping this all up, we've journeyed from nervously saying hi to navigating cultural minefields and ending chats smoothly. What are the absolute core things you want people to take away?
I think the big ones are start simple, observe your surroundings, ask good, open-ended questions, really listen actively. Look for that common ground, those shared interests. Be aware of cultural norms, what flies in one place might not in another. And always aim to end things politely.
It really feels like These aren't just nice-to-have skills, they're pretty fundamental for, well, everything. Work, personal life, just feeling comfortable out in the world.
Absolutely. It's not about memorizing lines, is it? It's about developing awareness, having a few strategies in your back pocket, and aiming for authentic connection. Even brief interactions can be positive ones.
So a final thought for you, our listener. Next time you're in a conversation, maybe just notice the subtle signals, the ones you send, the ones you receive. Could you try just one thing from today? Maybe ask one more follow-up question. Or really focus on your active listening for a minute. See what happens. Pay attention to what makes those interactions feel good, feel natural. You might just find connecting gets a little bit easier.